Hello, Emily Howland. It's me, Mr. Gessler. Welcome back to the Red Studio. It is a lovely day outside, so I'm going to make this video and then I'm going to go outside, and you should do the same. Although, here it's Wednesday, and when you get this video, it will be Monday or later, so I don't know what the weather will be like then, but it looks like spring is actually here in New York State. Hooray. Today we're going to review everything that we've discussed about rhythm for the past month, that is subdivision and syncopation. I have two main goals for this video. One is to clearly tell the difference between these two rhythms. I think that was one of the things we had the hardest time with on the homework. The other is to recognize syncopation with or without ties. If you can do those two things, you are well set to go back and touch up anything that you didn't like about your homework assignment. It's not too late. Let's start by reviewing our basic note values. Shouldn't be too hard, some things you've been doing since kindergarten. Since we know them pretty well, since we know that a quarter note is always ta, we can go pretty fast on this one. Ta, 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 ta. Now, the reason I'm throwing these Lego bricks back in here is because they really give you a good sense of how much space each note is taking up. You can clearly see in this song that the beat and rhythm are exactly the same. The keyboard plays one chord on each beat. You remember we talked a while ago about bopping our heads to the beat so we can feel the steady beat. You can really do that on this song. Just follow along with that tempo. One head bop equals one beat. We kind of joked about that. It was a little ridiculous, but it really works. Keeping that in mind for this next one then, we can think about two sounds on each one of these beats, and we can think about that head bop as being one of the beats. This one's going to be just a little bit slower. Let's try to read this rhythm before the music starts. Ta-dee, 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 ta. Shh, shh, shh.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know.
Notice that all of these rhythms fit nicely right in between those dotted lines. Those dotted lines are marking out our beats. None of the notes so far have crossed those dotted lines. How about this rhythm? Pretty straightforward, just a bunch of 16th notes with a couple of 8th notes at the end. Should be easy. But I want you to really notice how the rhythm that we read is identical to the sounds that are coming out of the instruments. And notice that as all of these notes slip into place, they are still not crossing that dotted line. They're all fitting nicely within the beginnings and the ends of beats. Taka-dee-me, 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 ta-dee. Okay, now we're going to get into this murky territory of 8ths and 16th notes and how they mix together and telling the difference between this one and that one. I'm not going to redo everything that we talked about in the subdivision and selfish 8th notes video, because you can always go back and watch that video yourself. But that video is mostly about how these notes sound. I want to talk about how they look. First, let's notice what these two rhythms have in common. Well, they both have 3 heads. Correction, they both have 3 note heads. And that only tells us that there are 3 sounds in each beat. It doesn't tell us how long or how short they are. For that, we have to look at the beams across the top of the figure. If there is 1 beam attached to the stem, then that note is an 8th note. If there are 2 beams attached to the stem, that note is a 16th note. Look at that group of notes in beat 2. The first note has 1 beam, which tells us it's an 8th note. Then the next 2 notes have 2 beams, so they're going to be 16th notes. It's as simple as that. It's just one of those things you have to learn and retain. Now, if these were all 16th notes, we would just be saying taka-dee-me. But because the first one is an 8th note, we're going to say ta-dee-me. If that doesn't make sense to you, please go back and watch the video called Subdivision and Selfish 8th Notes. It will explain all of that. Let's give this a read. It's going to be a little on the fast side, but we know this stuff pretty well. I think we can handle it. Ta-dee, ta-dee-me, ta-dee, sh. Ta-dee, ta-dee-me, ta-dee, sh. Is that Queen or David Bowie? Or Vanilla Ice? Here's another song with that same rhythm in it. Just a heads up, this one is 2 pages long. We're going to go a little slower at first and then we'll pick up the tempo. Ta di mi ta di taka di mi ta di ta ta-sh. Ta di mi ta di taka di mi ta di mi ta di ta. Cool. In these two songs, I'm only finding the ta di mi rhythm. I'm not finding the taka mi rhythm yet. Now let's try it a little faster. Ta di mi ta di taka di mi ta di ta ta-sh. Ta di mi ta di taka di mi ta di mi ta di ta. You recognize the song? Someone in your house might. And here's the same rhythm at a higher pitch. Now, here's a song that has the other rhythm in it. The first two quarter notes are pretty easy. The third beat has that 2 16th note and 8th note pattern in it, so we're going to say taka di. The long sound is at the end. If that doesn't make sense to you, please go back and watch the subdivision and selfish 8th notes video. This is a rhythm we have not seen yet. For this rhythm, we're going to say ta-mi, like this. Ta ta taka di ta mi ta di ta mi taka di ta mi ta di ta di mi. And of course, we're going to try it a little faster. Ta ta taka di mi ta di ta mi taka di ta mi ta di ta di ta.
So no, honey, I'm good. I can have another, but I probably should not. I got somebody at home, and if I stay, I might not leave alone. No.
You know, now that I think about it, there's some stuff in this song that we probably shouldn't be talking about yet. When you're a little older, I'll explain to you more about dotted eighth notes. But for now, just stay away from Tommy. That song had a lot of variety of rhythms in it, but you may have noticed that each one still fit in between two dotted lines. It never crossed over them. But all of that is about to change. Here's an old song from a video game called Mario Brothers. You may have heard of it. But this one is played by an orchestra. Just for the fun of it. Why not?
What the? Move over. Ow, I've got plenty of room.
Well, what's the problem here? I think we've seen this before. The eighth note by itself isn't big enough to fill that beat. But once the eighth note is in that beat, there isn't enough room for that quarter note to fit. But I mean, it looks like those two notes could fit pretty nicely into that space, right? As long as we could break the rules and cross over that dotted line. That is syncopation. I'm going to say it again because this is important. This is what syncopation is. Part of the note is in beat 2, part of the note is in beat 3. The note doesn't start on the beat, it doesn't end on the beat. That is what makes it syncopation, even though it's not wearing a tie. Or we could write the exact same thing with a tie. So, Mr. Gessler, you're saying that if the note crosses across the beat, across that dotted line, it's syncopation. Well, not every time. Look at the end of this song. We had two half notes. Both of them crossed through that dotted line. They began in beat 1 and ended in beat 2, or began at beat 3 and ended at beat 4. But both notes began and ended on a beat. With the quarter notes that we looked at earlier, they started in the middle of a beat and ended in the middle of a beat. What about this guy? An eighth note tied to a quarter note. Yeah, we really haven't seen that yet. Is this syncopation? Well, the tie is a giveaway, but besides that, yeah, the note ends on a dotted line, but it begins in the middle of a beat. So some music theorists may correct me on this, but for our purposes, I would say that's syncopation too. Most of you have turned in the homework assignment called Finding Syncopation, and I think the most consistent challenge was this question. Which of these rhythms is an example of syncopation? Well, many of you remembered from the video that if there is a tie in the music, it's very likely to be a syncopated rhythm. But what about this question? None of these options has a tie in it. For that, we'd have to go back to the video called Ties. Why would we ever need them? Remember we talked about a ratio with 3 factors in it? There was a pattern of a short note, a long note, and then another short note. That was an example of syncopation without ties. Look for that in the homework. It's going to help you out a whole lot. If you don't understand the first 6 questions, the music math notation questions, please go back and watch the video called, But Really, What is Syncopation? It will tell you everything you need to know. It literally just lists the answers for you. You can write them down. Everybody should be able to get a good grade on this one. That's the one with me as Thomas the Tank Engine. Squirrel!
Psst. Hey, can I have some?
Well, I'm sorry that I don't have anything ridiculous for you this week, like hip-hop accordion or Baby Shark mashup or Michael Jackson on Boomwhackers or me jumping in slow motion on a trampoline or anything like that. I could show you a video of me stalking a fox den. There's a fox on the road ahead of me, if I'm understanding right. And I know that he has a den nearby. Because I saw the babies earlier. It looks like he's carrying one of the babies, or she's carrying one of the babies back to the den. She sees me, which means I won't be able to get a close-up shot very easily. I think I'll leave now. Wants me to chase her so that I go away from the den. Very clever. And here's a woodpecker on my roof making it hard for me to record stuff. And here's a bunch of little birds chasing a big bird. And here's another fox. And here's another fox. And another fox. Well, that's probably the same one, actually. And here's what my brother Nick thinks about my videos.
There's a sad sort of clanging from the clock in the hall, and the bells in the steeple too.
Thanks, Nick. Why don't you try teaching rhythm? Critics. So as of the release of this video, all of your grades should be up to date in School Tools, so you can look there to make sure you're not missing any work. Probably in this quarantine online classroom, there are 3 kinds of people. The first one would be people who are missing assignments. If you are missing assignments, you can still go back and finish those. I would suggest finishing this video first and then maybe reviewing those 2 videos that I mentioned earlier. The second type of person is the one who thinks that they completed all of their assignments, but they go to School Tool and there's a 0 or there's a grade that they don't understand. If that's you, if you think you completed something but I didn't give you a grade for it, here's what you can do. Go back to the assignment on Google Classroom. If you get this screen, then you already did the assignment and Mr. Gessler dropped the ball somewhere. The third kind of person is somebody who's completed all of their work, but they don't really like their grades. After today's video, you might understand these concepts a little better and you might find it a lot easier to do these assignments again. So if you want to do that, here's how you do it. Go to Google Classroom and click on the assignments that you want to redo. You will get this screen. Click Edit My Response, and I'll update your grades before the end of the school year. If you are caught up on all the homework, congratulations, there is no new homework this week. Next week, I'm going to show you around another music app that is pretty much the same thing as GarageBand, but it's free and it does not require an iPad or a Mac product. See you then. I'm going to say it again. This is syncopation.
I'm going to say it again. This is syncopation.
I'm going to say it again. This is syncopation.
I'm going to say it again because this is important.